We begin today in a prominent Jewish neighborhood in Toronto where a series of nearby protests have sparked controversy. This was the scene on the Avenue Road Bridge over Highway 401 on Saturday. Pro-Palestinian protesters have been demonstrating on the overpass for nearly a week. On Sunday, Toronto's police chief had to issue an apology after this video of officers handing coffee to protesters was posted on social media. It has also been criticized by some Jewish politicians. They say the protests on Avenue Road are purposefully targeting the surrounding Jewish neighborhood. In a post on X, Quebec Liberal MP Anthony Housefather said there is no logic as to the choice of this location other than the large local Jewish population. Ontario Conservative MP Melissa Landsman also weighed in, saying, "Seems like the target is a Jewish neighborhood because it is." For more on how these protests are affecting the Toronto Jewish community, I'm joined by Noah Shak, Vice President of Countering Antisemitism and Hate with the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. Mr. Shak, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, by your title, and you work in the fight against anti-Semitism as you have for much or most of your professional career, how would you describe the moment we're in right now in this country?
It's a very tense moment. It's a moment where our values as Canadians are under threat with each hate crime that's being perpetrated against members of the Jewish community. And there have been a lot of them, a massive spike in anti-Jewish hate since the Hamas terrorist attacks on October 7th. We're seeing it in our streets, we're seeing it in our schools, at our universities, in our workplaces. It's a truly frightening time, not just for the Jewish community, but for everyone who believes that we should be able to live free from hate and intimidation and harassment in our cities all across Canada.
It's not surprising that a moment like this, with what's happening in Gaza and in Israel, would spark protests. You saw them at the Israeli embassy here in Ottawa, for example, very early in the conflict. But what do you make of the nature of how these protests are evolving, like this Avenue Road protest, where the intention seems to be Jewish Canadian neighborhoods rather than, say, Israeli government offices and buildings?
The Avenue Road overpass over the 401 is a long way from the Israeli consulate downtown. It is the linkage between two largely Jewish neighborhoods on either side of the highway. And it's been shut down regularly, almost every other day for the last number of weeks, with concerns from police about public safety. The police have been closing it down because of these protests. This is not a sustainable situation where people are feeling intimidated and harassed and targeted just because of who they are and where they live. And it's part of a broader phenomenon that we're experiencing where just yesterday, families going to have a skate at Nathan Phillips Square on the last Sunday of winter break were accosted by demonstrators showing support for Hamas, a terrorist organization listed in Canada. They wouldn't let the Zamboni out to resurface the ice. This is disruption on a whole other level. And again, it's targeting Canadians going about their regular lives, whether it's members of the Jewish community in their neighborhoods or members of the broader public going to the mall to sit on Santa's lap, going to have a skate during winter break, trying to get across the 401 to go visit friends and family. And it's happening over and over and over again. And enough is enough. It's time that we make it clear that a small group of activists shouldn't be able to bring life to a standstill in Canada's largest city.
Right.
So many.
I mean, Nathan Phillips Square is a popular place for protests and gatherings and vigils. And so, it's not uncommon to see people voicing disagreement or support for causes in a place like that. But the Avenue Road neighborhoods, that seems new, right? In the way that is happening. I just wonder what you're hearing from the people who live on either side of that bridge and how they're feeling, having the sort of the anger over what's happening, in Gaza coming to their doorsteps.
Well, I just want to point out, though, that there's demonstrating in Nathan Phillips Square, which of course happens, I think, almost every single weekend in our robust democracy. And then there's going down onto the ice to stop people from enjoying the venue. And I think
yes, that's a fair point. Yes.
In terms of the neighborhood, look, people are unable to get in and out of the neighborhood through that main artery connecting it with the rest of the city. This is not just an inconvenience and people being trapped by protesters shouting obscene things, hateful things. It also has an impact on ability for ambulances to get through, for people to use public transit, and has serious consequences for residents of the area. And as we've seen these protests continue to escalate, right, moving out of the downtown core closer and closer into areas where Jewish people are going about their daily lives, with harassment and intimidation, and even hate crime targeting people. This is a time of serious concern and fear that people have that it will continue to escalate if left unchecked. And we don't have to look very far to see a good example with the arson attack on a Jewish-owned deli in North York, not too far from where these protests are happening, directly linked to the protest movement, with Free Palestine spray painted across the doors of this establishment. I think that's what's most concerning for people. It's not just that this neighborhood is being disrupted and people's lives are being shut down on a regular basis, with police having to close the on-ramps to the 401 and the overpass on Avenue Road because of safety and security concerns. It's about what that escalation means and where it's going next. And we've seen time and again that hateful words lead to hateful actions, and that those hateful actions unfortunately spiral if we don't do anything about them.
Right. Yeah. No. Going back to the point where we started this, like the Israeli embassy, the Israeli consulates, fair game, really, for public protest. You know, in the acceptable parameters of what happens here. This is different. Obviously, the police role in what happened at the IDF deli, as you talk about, is very clear. Investigate it, find out who did it, lay charges. What's the role in a situation like the blocking of a bridge? I mean, that may be intimidating, but the act in and of itself is not violent per se. And there was the criticism of the police delivering coffee or donuts or whatever it was over the weekend that led to an apology. There were similar things here in Ottawa during the convoy occupations where the local residents were deeply frustrated by de-escalation tactics by police. What do you want to see police do in a situation like these blockading of bridges? Because there is a right to protest in Canada. How do you want them to approach dealing with something like this one?
Look, Toronto is the largest city in Canada. It's a very big place. There are lots of places within the city to protest. The fact that these demonstrators keep coming back to the same location every couple of days, prompting police to have to shut down the bridge, shut down the on-ramps, and cause massive disruption along the 401, along the city streets and the neighborhoods, impacting businesses, impacting families. In this one area in particular, this is something that is not sustainable. And so there is an expectation that we won't let this status quo go on and on and on, that something's got to give, and it's got to give now. How long are residents expected to be impacted this way? In particular, that it appears this is targeting Jewish residents because of their affinity and closeness and identification with the people of Israel. And I think, just to go back to your other point about the legitimacy of protesting the consulate, for example, as a representative office of the government of Israel about disagreement over policies or approaches taken by the government of Israel, 100% that's fair game. These protesters are going on a bridge in a predominantly or largely Jewish neighborhood, chanting for Jews to be driven out of Israel, calling for the country to be destroyed, and with a whole bunch of ugly, libelous claims about the Jewish people and the state of Israel. And this is hateful. This is not about policy change. This is about destruction. And to do so specifically in proximity to where so many Jewish people are just trying to go about their normal daily lives, that is deeply concerning, and it's not something that we should allow to continue day in, day out. Enough is enough.
We've seen politicians denounce these actions and condemn anti-Semitism, also condemning Islamophobia. But we saw this incident with the police over the weekend, which obviously caused some consternation in terms of how seriously this is being taken. Do you think political leadership, law enforcement leadership in the country is taking the threat of anti-Semitism, aside from these specific incidents, do you think they're taking it as seriously as they need to right now?
I'll say about the Toronto Police Service that they have deployed significant resources, both proactively and reactively, to address the spike in anti-Semitism, the spike in anti-Jewish hate crime that we're experiencing, both in terms of having mobile command centers in neighborhoods, in terms of boosting investigative capacity. And we have full confidence that the investigation into the arson attack on a Jewish deli in North York will yield results. That's the expectation, and we really appreciate the rigor that the police are putting into that. I think this is that was a real wake-up call for a lot of people, just how far things have come. The police referred to it as a tipping point. And I think it's important that everybody open their eyes to the impact that these demonstrations are having on residents in the city, day in, day out. People who want to go visit friends and family, who want to go out and buy groceries, people who want to go take their kids skating, and even emergency vehicles, public transportation, and things that are not just important for daily life, but essential, are being blocked as a result of these demonstrations that are happening over and over and over again. And the harassment and intimidation that is happening is taking its toll on the community. Right. It really is. And it's important for people to be aware of that. Look, freedom of expression is so important to all of us as Canadians, but it shouldn't be an excuse to harm other people. And we just need to be mindful and respectful. And if the impact that these demonstrators seek to have is policy change for the Canadian government, for the Israeli government, then I fail to see how protesting in a way that only has negative impact on Jewish Canadians is achieving those objectives. It seems that their intentions are otherwise.
Noah Shak, I want to thank you for your time. That's Noah Shak, Vice President of Countering Anti-Semitism and Hate with the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.